Okay, in this video we're going to be going over how to install vinyl signage and graphics. Now, depending on the size of the graphic you're installing and the surface you're installing it on, there's a few different methods you might end up using, so we're going to go over several different sizes, several different types of surfaces. Now, this applies for pretty much any cut vinyl that you, whether you bought it at the store or manufactured it yourself, or if you're working on a project with me, in which case I might have sent you a package which would have included the vinyl as well as an application squeegee. Now, if for any reason you've lost this or don't have it, then in a pinch you could use a credit card or access badge. They'll work almost just as well. So we'll start with probably the simplest scenario, which would be the smaller graphics. I would say anything about this size or smaller would qualify for this method, as compared to the medium or large size ones where we're going to be like peeling half at a time. In the case of something as small as this, going on the drywall like this, we're just going to be able to peel it all off at once and stick it on the wall. So the first thing you're going to want to do is set your alignment. Blue painter's tape works really well for that. You could use masking tape, or pretty much any tape will work, but obviously if you're using something like duct tape or the stickier ones, you're going to watch out, because you don't want to rip the paint off the wall when you remove the tape. So in the case of a bigger space where you don't have an exact alignment, you can go ahead and just eye it. If you do have more specific alignment needs as far as fixtures or clearance, then you're going to want to go ahead and measure that out first. But in this case, let's say we're just being pretty general with our alignment. So just go ahead and stick your tape up on the wall like that where you want your graphic, and just eye it as far as what you think his level is. Now hopefully you have something along these lines, or if not, then you can probably find an app for your smartphone that'll let your phone be a level. And barring that, if you don't have that, then you could still just use the old-fashioned method of kind of standing back from the wall and eyeing it and getting it level. Maybe ask a friend for a second opinion. So once you have it up there, you're going to want to double check now to see how close you were. Actually, that was pretty accurate, but if it wasn't, you could just peel back like that, keep it anchored at one end, use your level to get it straight, and then go ahead and push it back down. And if you have any needs or if you want to, set your left and right alignment, you could just use another piece of tape for that. Just up along the left here, that'll kind of help you set your graphic or your text. Okay, so the idea with this is you have a wax paper backing, and then the cut vinyl on top of that, and then a clear tape layer over the top of that. And we're going to be peeling the clear tape and the vinyl off the backing and sticking it on the wall, pressing it down, then removing the clear tape, leaving just the vinyl on the wall. Now over time, the tape can become a little unstuck from the vinyl, so you want to just give it a last minute little refresher and go over it with your squeegee like this. Make sure you get all the little parts pushed down. Throughout this process, you're going to want to pay special attention to little things like the colon and resources here, and any little thin pieces, because they really love to just kind of stick to the wrong thing or get lost or get stuck to the back of the tape. Wherever you don't want it is where it's going to go. So pay attention to the little pieces. So once you've got that set to go, we're just going to start peeling it back. I'm going to do this on the wall, which is probably more difficult. I'm just doing it so you can see it. You probably just want to put it down on a table. Now, if you can already start to see some of the issues that might happen, if as you're going you have pieces that aren't coming with the tape and they want to stay on the backing, like the C does right there, just go back and use your fingernail to kind of give it another little burnishing. And each vinyl is different, and you'll find some are a lot more cooperative than others. Hopefully they don't give you too much trouble. See here, definitely the colon did not want to come with the tape, so I'm just going to push that down. All right, and that's that. So that was a somewhat troublesome one. If you're lucky, you won't have that much trouble. You'd be able to just peel it right back off in one motion. But you know, I wouldn't do that at first. Take it easy at first. Make sure everything is going with you. And if it does give you trouble like that, then just take your time and work with each little piece if you have to. When you're peeling across, it'll be as you come to the beginning of a letter where it'll go with you or decide to kind of stay on the backing. So now we have it off like this, and as you can see with the clear tape, you can see through to your alignment underneath. So hold it close to the surface but not quite touching. You don't want anything to touch too soon because it can sometimes be difficult to get it back off. So I don't want to block the camera here, but when you're doing it, you should stand right in front of there to be able to get an accurate view. I'll just kind of stand off to the side here. So just eye it, get it lined up, maybe press it down on one side first. Hold that there and then lay it down across. And before you do anything else, once it's stable there, you're going to want to just kind of step back, make sure that looks like about where you want it. If you've encountered any substantial wrinkles or bubbles in this where something got kind of cocked off to the side, it's usually not too late to be able to peel it back off and reposition. So if you have to, just carefully making sure you're taking everything with you, peel it back, fix whatever the issue was, and then lay it back out like this with just a gentle press of the hand to start. That'll get everything, once you're okay with it, get everything initially anchored like that. Confirm again that's what you want, and then take your squeegee and go ahead and start pressing all that down into the surface. You'll find that every different vinyl has its own personality and every different wall has its own personality. Some paints are waxier than others and will have less stickiness with the vinyl. In addition, the little bumps and ridges in an eggshell finish like this, while they're good for letting air bubbles out, it means there's less total area sticking to the vinyl, so it can sometimes be tricky to get that to stay on the wall at first. It's going to want to come with the tape when you peel it off. But again, each vinyl is different. In this case, I don't know yet. We'll see how this one goes, whether it gives us a lot of trouble or not. But regardless, you're going to want to make sure it's really well pressed down into all the nooks and crannies of the surface there. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and start peeling tape back. Now you don't want to peel this way or perpendicular. You want to peel as much as possible back along the surface. That'll reduce the number of issues you might encounter. So as I'm going along here, it's doing all right. Now you probably can't see because the camera's not close enough, but on that S there, it was a little loose. It didn't quite want to stay with the tape, but it was precariously loose. Made it all the way, and so after I've gotten that off, I'll just go through and press that down to make sure it doesn't get knocked loose before we finish everything else up. So we'll continue with the E here, same thing, and I'll try to make it peel just to show you what it's like. I don't know again if you're close enough to see that, but the arms of the E are not stuck to the wall. If you come to a part that does that, just kind of back up a bit, press down with your finger, and try again. If you can get enough of the tape off of the vinyl to kind of press it down in place, that'll help as well. And there we have it. Now, as you can see, this gave me, I would say that was moderate difficulty as far as the vinyl wanting to stick to the tape versus the wall. The solution is just what you saw there as you're going along. You just have to kind of really attend to each little piece as you come to it, and through a combination of folding of the tape back and pressing down with your fingers, whether it's on top of the tape or after you've peeled the tape off, just a combination of all those things to be able to get each little piece to stay. You don't want to get too far along or peel too much back and have the vinyl not stuck, because if it's with the tape or if it's just flopping loose, there's a chance that when you go back and try to put it down again, it's not going to be aligned properly. So you're pretty much set with that. Now you see me kind of touching up the little pieces here. it's probably what you'd want to do. You can look at it and see how much it looks like it's really pressed into the texture of the wall or not. It should be. If it's not, if it's kind of floating on top, you're going to want to go ahead and just, again, address each individual piece and press it down, get it nice and anchored in there. And even though it might not seem super sticky at first, don't worry about it. The adhesive will kind of cure over the first few days and weeks, and eventually it'll be full strength and you won't have to worry about anything really falling off in most cases. So once that's done, you can just go ahead and remove the tape. So that's it for installing small vinyl on a drywall situation. In the next parts of the segment, we're going to go over how to install medium and large pieces on drywall, as well as things like glass. So now we're going to look at how to install slightly larger vinyl as compared to the smaller ones where you can do it all in one shot. With these larger guys of this size or larger, it gets a little bit more tricky, especially when you have the big pieces 4 feet across. It's just too big and unwieldy to be able to just kind of place it up there and have everything line up just right, as well as not having any bubbles or wrinkles in it. So the strategy for these types is you're going to tape it on the wall with the backing still attached, and we're going to get it aligned and then peel the tape and the vinyl off the backing up to about the halfway point, and then cut away the backing underneath that, lay it back out, repeat it for the other side, and then burnish it all down. So I'm going to start with a few pieces of painter's tape here. And again, if you've got specific alignment needs, go ahead and measure those out. If not, if you're just kind of generally positioning, put it where you want it, tape it to what you think is approximately level. And then again, use either your old-fashioned level or your phone or just your eye, whatever you need to make sure it's level. Find something in the image that should be comprised of a horizontal line. And if it's not currently horizontal, then you can just remove a piece of tape, kind of rotate things until you get it just right. Put the tape back down, straighten that guy out, and just verify that that looks about where you want it to be. So once we have that level in position, now we're going to go put a couple more pieces of tape just at the midpoint, or maybe slightly left or right of midpoint. And these are going to define where we peel our first and second halves up to. Now that that's on there, you want to go, again, just do one little last refresher of getting the vinyl nice and stuck to the tape. So now we're ready to peel it. You can go ahead and remove this piece of tape first. Start from whichever side you prefer. So you're going to want to, if you're doing a one-man job, you're going to want to have all your tools within reach or in your pocket or something. If you have a buddy to help, that's great. So want to have your scissors handy, because once you get this peeled back, you may be kind of like tied to the wall holding this in place, but needing access to your scissors. As we've seen before, sometimes you can have some difficulty with the vinyl staying stuck to the backing and not coming off on the tape. The sun line is a perfect example of what can be an extremely frustrating detailed graphic. I'm probably going to end up cutting the footage here because it's going to take me a while to peel this all back off the tape. But as we saw before, you know, it's possible. It's just a little tedious. As you go, you want to just press down each little piece. Try not to let it stay on the backing, and kind of press down where needed, segment by segment, and gradually making your way across. Okay, so we've got our tape peeled back about halfway up to the blue tape here. So you're going to want to grab your scissors and just kind of run up the line. Careful not to cut any remaining vinyl. Just get rid of that piece. And grab your squeegee. And just kind of pull this gently up and around and use the squeegee to starting at the edge of the paper underneath, just starting right there, kind of working your way out. Now, the best way to keep bubbles and wrinkles from happening is to move in a linear way. So you want to kind of work your way across. Doesn't have to be super hard right now. You just want to get everything kind of initially anchored, and working your way down across like that. Once it's in place, then maybe go back and give it another pass and get it anchored a little better. Now you can remove the remaining pieces of blue tape. The piece will stay on the wall because of the clear tape sticking. And now I'm going to do kind of the same thing but upside down this time. And again, that can be really tricky if you've got difficult pieces wanting to stick to the backing. Okay, and discard that piece. Now, gradually bring this around and just working back in the other direction. Once you have that all nice and firmly pressed down, we can remove the tape. Again, take it slow, make sure you don't lose any pieces, don't let anything pop loose. See there on the C, that didn't quite go as it should have, so before you get too far out of line, just gently back up, fix the issue. And once again, just go back and press down on all this. What you don't want to do is to use the squeegee once you've removed the tape on this, because it's just going to catch an edge of the vinyl and scrape it off, and it's not going to look right after that. So once the tape is off, I'd say use only your fingers, or if you need to give it a broad pass, use something like the leftover paper backing and put it over the top before you go over with the squeegee like that. That way nothing will get scraped off. So there you have it, the half and half method for installation of medium and large size vinyl. It'll work for anything from this scale all the way on up to many, many feet across. And in this case, it was just a one-man job, but as things get larger, they do quickly become unwieldy. So if it was much larger than this, you might want to have a second pair of hands along to help when you're especially peeling the tape back. If you forget or can't reach a tool, or if you need to work on a detail, you're kind of stuck holding the tape if you're by yourself. So have a second pair of hands along to help do that for you. Now, as we saw in this case, the trade-offs of applying to an eggshell finish on drywall like this, the good thing is the nooks and crannies let the air bubbles out. You rarely have to worry about air bubbles. The downside is the vinyl doesn't stick as much to the wall, so you can run into a lot of trouble, especially with these intricate pieces when you're peeling the tape back. That's in comparison to smoother surfaces like glass, where you don't have adhesion issues, but because there's no nooks and crannies, it'll be harder for the air bubbles to get out. So we're going to look at that next. Okay, so we've looked at installing vinyl on drywall. Now we're going to look at installing it on glass. And the same procedure is going to apply for pretty much any smooth surface. So glass, metal, plastic, varnished wood, anything that doesn't have the bumps and grooves and the textured surface of a painted wall. It's the bumps and grooves that let the air bubbles out, and so when you don't have that on a smooth wall, you have to start dealing with how to get the air bubbles out. But before I get into how to deal with that, I want to show you the upside of installing on glass or any smooth surface, which is that you have a lot more adhesion and you don't have to worry about all the hassles when you're peeling the tape back. Now with the air bubble issue, it's more prevalent when you're dealing with larger solid pieces of vinyl where it's a greater distance to get any air bubble out to the edge. When you have smaller, either just letters or a more intricate small graphic, where it's not a huge swath of solid vinyl, then you can get away without having to worry about the air bubbles. So here's an example of something where you look in the middle of these parts of vinyl here, it's no more than a 1/4 inch to the nearest exit for any air bubble. So we're just going to go ahead without any extra precautions and just install this right on the glass and show you how easy it is when you can get good adhesion all the way across. So I'm not even going to worry about alignment on this one. Just going to kind of lay it up there and stick it on. Make sure it looks approximately right, although you probably could not turn back and make a change now because it's a lot stickier on the glass. And just go ahead and brush it down like that. And as you'll see, it's a lot more willing to stick to the glass than the tape. So whereas before I was having to, address each individual little piece, now it's like 98% of the pieces are laying down where they're supposed to right from the start. So there you go, that was probably like 10 or 15 seconds compared to about 5 minutes on the drywall. So that's the positives of a smooth surface. If you've got an intricate or small or thin enough graphic, you don't need to worry about anything else, just kind of get it up there, brush it down, gently peel the tape back and you're done. So now we've come to the really juicy part, and I say juicy because we're going to be using some juice to aid in getting the air bubbles out from under some of the larger pieces of vinyl when you have a big wide piece like this that will tend to trap air bubbles. So we're going to start just like we did on the drywall with our medium and large size pieces. Again, in this case, I'm not going to worry about showing you how to do alignment. But I will show you a slightly different variation on what we did before. We did the half and half method left to right, but you could also do the same thing top to bottom. It really just depends on the individual case, the proportions of the graphic, other things that are in your way and involved in the situation. So just take it on a case-by-case basis and decide what'll work better for you. Generally, if you've got a piece that's wider than it is tall, you would want to do your half and half going left to right. If you've got a piece that's a lot taller than it is wide, you might want to go top to bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and peel the tape and vinyl off the top half here. As you'll see, this is a translucent vinyl we're using in this case, so it should provide an interesting effect with the backlighting from the other side of the glass. So again, you're just doing peel off of the top half, come in with the scissors, toss that. So now, of course, if you haven't already, you want to make sure the surface is nice and clean. You're going to take your juice, and we want to wet both the glass and the backside of the vinyl. And what this is going to do is just going to prevent the vinyl from becoming fully stuck to the glass as soon as it touches. It'll be a little bit stuck to it, but not a lot. Not so much that you can't squeeze any air bubbles out. And then as it dries over the course of a few days, that any remaining moisture behind it will evaporate and it'll become just as sticky and stuck as it would if you hadn't used the juice. So this I may have sent you if the install was something we discussed and was going to be on a surface requiring juice. I might have sent you a little bottle like this. If not, you can buy vinyl application juice online. Some people also will make their own with just mostly water, a little bit of alcohol, and a few drops of dishwash detergent. Although we haven't tested that, so can't vouch for whether that's any better or worse than this stuff. It is probably a lot cheaper though. So take your bottle of juice, spray the area that it's going to go, and you want it, just about dripping. You don't want it to be sparse, but it doesn't need to be flowing like a waterfall down the wall. Then you're going to get the back side of the vinyl and go ahead and just brush it down like we did in the previous cases. And I don't know if you can see on the camera, it has this nice little effect where it's almost like a static cling thing where the juice will kind of pull the vinyl on, and it actually gives you some freedom for repositioning. If you really didn't like the position or something went wrong, you could probably, in most cases, peel back and continue to work. Or if you had a smaller piece, you might even be able to, if you had enough juice underneath, scoot it around and play with it before settling on a final position. So just want to get as much, at least the initial large amount of juice out from under the vinyl. If you don't get it out, this will be very not stuck and could just cause a little bit of trouble for you in the next couple steps. So we're going to go ahead and peel the bottom half now. Be careful not to let this fall back down onto the glass below prematurely, because without the juice there, it'll stick and not come unstuck. So I mentioned previously about the statickiness of this tape, and here's a good example of it. See, it's not actually stuck because of tape or any stickiness, it's stuck just because of the static. So it's kind of quite convenient. You don't have to have a second pair of hands around to hold it for you. The static takes care of it. So we'll spray on the bottom half. Spray on the back of the vinyl again. And work it gradually downward. As I mentioned before, it's always good to just work in a linear direction. If you were to kind of do it piecemeal or start from the outside in, you're just going to be making it harder for yourself as far as getting air bubbles out. So as a general rule of geometry, you want to kind of work radially, either across the graphic or radially outwards. You just want to be able to give the air bubbles and the extra juice the shortest path to get out of the equation there. So whether that's going across or radially, you just don't want to go inward, whatever you do. So now we've got it pretty much set. There's probably still a little bit of juice underneath the vinyl, and that's fine. It's just a matter of, will it give you any trouble on peeling the tape off? If there's enough juice underneath for the vinyl to not be stuck, then it's just going to want to stick to the tape, similar to the problems we saw on some drywall. But if you really squeegee it well, you can get the majority of the juice out from underneath and give it a pretty good degree of adhesion there. You also want to make sure, just look very closely for air bubbles. One of the reasons I chose a translucent one on here is because the translucent definitely calls for having no air bubbles left at the end. If there's any air bubbles in there, you'll see them, much more so than on opaque vinyl. So if there's any air bubbles left, we'll see it on this. So I think I've got it pretty set. I don't see any remaining bubbles. I think I've got most of the juice out. So I'm going to go ahead and start peeling here. And the initial edge that you come to, especially in the case of a big broad piece like this, may be a little trickier. But just use your fingers to hold it down. Another one of the difficulties that comes with a large piece is that it's a lot of area for the tape to stick to. So the tape really doesn't want to come off it, especially compared to the vinyl on the glass, which is not yet really sticky because of the juice. So now that we have the tape off, you can see it's still not perfect. It was a little tricky due to the fact that the vinyl is not very stuck to the glass yet with the juice still on it. But the good news about that is that you've got plenty of freedom to kind of rework stuff. So feel free to kind of reposition as needed. If you need to, especially if you're going to reposition multiple times, things are going to start to dry out underneath. You can just hit it up again with a little bit of the juice. And as long as you keep doing that, you'll still be free to work this and position it till it's just right. Here's a case where we have a little bit of a wrinkle that's developed due to the on and off stickiness as I was peeling the tape. Something became misaligned between this top part and this part, and you can see there's a little wrinkle right here. So if I were to just try to squeegee everything together, I'd end up with a fold of material that had nowhere to go. So that has to be corrected somehow. So since we're still not too stuck thanks to the juice, you just peel it back a bit and work your way linearly and let it set itself straight as you work your way along. So now we've got a pretty good positioning. There's still some air bubbles in here. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but those should be easy to take care of, just squeegeeing them out as long as there's the juice underneath. And in this case, you might also want to put some juice on the top just to kind of lubricate this guy sliding over the top of it. And so as an example here, once again, you want to work outwards. You want to get each air bubble the shortest path to the outside. You don't want to have it cross miles and miles of vinyl to get there because you'll run into trouble. So working radially is the best strategy. Like this bubble here, closest outlet for him is just straight off to the side. So I'm just going to go like that. And you see a lot of these are actually not air bubbles, they're juice bubbles because of the juice underneath collected together. So you might want to have a couple paper towels handy as well, because by the end of all this, you might find yourself with some drips down at the bottom. Now as I work my way around, I'm seeing another wrinkle that has developed, again just due to misalignments between different parts of the graphic. So once again, not to worry, as long as there's enough juice underneath, you've got the freedom to reposition. So you just want to work your way linearly, and that air bubble will kind of get itself pushed all the way down. Make sure it doesn't get caught and kinked up on itself, but Once you can get it to the edge, the air or the juice will flow out. Okay, so that's it. That's final installation on glass or any smooth surface. As you can see, the operative factor here is the air bubbles, but as long as you got your juice, you are all good.